been gone for a little bit. And kids got the tonsils taken out. That was, that's fun. In that process right now, they're almost done with that. I got sick. I couldn't even talk for real. I had something was up in my throat. So I don't even know if it was a thing going on with everybody. But glad to be back. So kind of changed the format just a little bit. So today we're gonna go over two cases. One, David Berkowitz, and the second one, Colleen Stan. What we're gonna do, kind of like last time, we're gonna watch some videos, and I need to see how I'm gonna figure this out. Because I'm gonna try to get a schedule. Today is Tuesday, well, really Wednesday. Because I'm doing this very early in the morning, and so I need to figure out, because I still want to do the Unsolved Mysteries. I'm not sure if there's videos on Unsolved Mysteries, so I need to figure that part out. But once I do, I think I can get a better flow of how I'm going to do things. But like I always say, consistency is key, and I have not been consistent, and that's my fault. But let's go ahead and get into it. I'll probably structure how I did last time. These videos, we're only doing 2 videos today, just because they're both 40 minutes apiece, and we'll see how this goes. I'm not sure. Not sure. Again, I always talk about the copyrights and whatnot. Not sure how that works, but it's still a rising channel, so we'll figure it all out as we go. All right, let's start. We're starting off with David Berkowitz. I have a little bit of a background. Basically known as the son of Sam. He terrorized New York City during the mid-'70s with a series of brutal shootings that left 6 people dead, 7 others wounded. Okay. Probably should have let Colleen will be better, because I probably won't start off telling what exactly happened. But I'm pretty sure there's probably more to the story, but let's listen to it, and then we'll react to it after.
In the mid-1970s, New York City was plunged into terror.
I can't tell you what effect this series of crimes had on the city of New York. People in the area lived in a great deal of fear.
Innocent young couples were being slayed on the streets.
There was no rhyme or rhythm or reason. Had no idea where it was going to pop up next.
Literally everybody who walked the streets were terrified.
The killer called himself the Son of Sam.
When he got the urge to kill, he would scan the streets of the city of New York.
But what made him murder? Was he warped by his experiences?
This was a terribly, pathetically lonely young man.
Or was the Son of Sam born to kill?
These individuals are hardwired so that their killing is part of their sexual arousal pattern.
Okay, so it looks like this is going to be very interesting. As you can see at the bottom, we have 40-something minutes. Interesting to see how they play this out. Trying to tie killings into sexual stuff. Ugh. Well, actually, we see a lot of killings be tied to that, to be honest with you, so it's not too far-fetched. All right, let me see if I can skip past all of this, because I don't need none of that.
It's changed. This used to be a park house that's somewhere in the middle over here before they renovated this park years back.
In the summer of 1977, after meeting just a week earlier, 20-year-olds Robert Violante and Stacy Moskowitz were out on their first date.
We had gone out to a movie first, and then we drove over here to where we're sitting now. We came out into the park. It was a summer night. It was nice out, and we felt like 2 little kids. I said, "How about we let's go for playing a swing for a little while." When I had walked by the park, I had just saw some guy hanging out, and didn't think anything of it. And then we had gone into my car. We sat in my car. And then the next thing, all I remember was hearing a couple of loud noises, like bangs. The first thing I had heard was a moan coming from Stacy. No, I couldn't see her because I was totally blinded. Something clicked in my head that we must have been shot. Oh my God, we're dead.
Well, obviously this is the guy. I'm confused. Guess I could talk through it.
The
I'm a little
attack was
confused.
to be the final chilling act of the most notorious killer in New York's history. The 29th of July, 1976, 1 year earlier. 18-year-old Donna Laurie and her friend, 19-year-old Jody Valenti, are sitting in a parked car, talking after a night out. A man approaches, draws a gun, and fires 3 times.
Just randomly?
Donna is killed almost instantly, but Jody survives
Oh,
and
wow.
can describe the shooter.
In most police departments, they have what they call a sketch artist. And in these particular incidents, the survivors of these shootings, we got sketches.
The gunman was a stocky white male with curly or bushy hair. And crucially, unlike most New York homicides, he had no known connection to the victim.
That's the weird part about this.
Over the following winter months of 1976, there would be 2 further unprovoked shootings, injuring 4 more victims, this time in the borough of Queens.
The memory of the case is seared in my memory for all time, like all other New Yorkers who were around at that time. These killings began as sort of random events.
There's no rhyme or rhythm or reason.
However, there were similarities between the crimes.
Many of the shootings took place in dark lovers' lane areas where, young people might be parking, and a man would approach and open fire.
Clearly a serial sexual murder in my judgment. Take a look at who he's shooting. He's shooting women. He's shooting them in lovers' lanes. These individuals are hardwired so that their behavior, their killing, is part of their sexual arousal pattern. That's why they repeat it, because it is so sexually arousing and sexually stimulating.
They get that just from one shooting, though? And I'm not saying that one shooting is, okay, but that's interesting. I'm not sure if I just get that off of one.
On the
one
30th
shooting.
of January 1977, another shooting. Detective Sergeant Joseph Coffey was assigned to the case.
I was called in to investigate a homicide that occurred in Queens County. It was the homicide of a girl named Christine Freund, and she was sitting in a car with a boyfriend.
26-year-old Christine and her boyfriend John had returned to their car after a night out, when without warning, a gunman opened fire.
And it was a brutal killing. She was shot in the head several times.
Oh, wow.
As with the first 3 attacks, the shooter was unknown to the victims and had immediately fled the scene of the crime.
Wait, so he didn't kill the guy then? Okay, yeah. Maybe right now it sounded, and like a lot of these killers sound like he didn't like women. Or just had serious beef with
The
them,
evidence began to point to a serial killer.
obviously.
It became apparent that the same weapon, a .44 caliber revolver, was being used in all of the killings.
But ballistics results were inconclusive.
Ballistics of the bullets involved did not match because of the nature of the type of gun that was used. It was a .44 caliber Charter Arms Bulldog. that gun was fashioned for sky marshals. And the gun was of such a nomenclature that it was made that you could fire it from within an aeroplane and not penetrate the fuselage. So that means the ballistics of the bullet coming out of the gun was limited.
Thank you for that, because I did not know what he meant.
5 weeks later, just one street away, the gun was used again.
I ain't walking on the streets.
19-year-old student Virginia Voskerichian was found dead.
Dang.
She was shot in the street by an unknown perpetrator who came up to her and fired at her, and she had put her school books up in front of her, and the bullet went through the school books and lodged in her brain.
That would be so scary. It's awful.
We were able to compare the bullet that we recovered from her skull to the original shooting that we took from the body of Donna Lauria. Because we were able to do that, we were able to determine that we had a serial killer.
5 attacks had left 3 dead and 4 injured, and now news spread that a serial killer was stalking the streets of New York.
People were afraid to go out. It was a terrifying experience.
I mean, it was a time where one man could terrorize an entire city of 8 million people. Literally everybody who walked the streets, particularly women, were terrified.
But the mystery...
See, yeah, I meant to pause a second ago. That's what I'd be terrified of just as a woman. I'd be like, I'm not going out here. I can't do this. Okay, so seems like, so the last girl seemed like she was alone. She was coming from school. Other girl was with her boyfriend, husband, still gets killed. Other girl, the first one, 2 of the girls got shot at. So this guy just has vendetta out on women, like most of these killers.
Killer's reign of terror had only just begun. In early 1977, the citizens of New York had been plunged into panic by the news that a serial killer was loose on their streets. 5 attacks had already left 3 dead and 4 wounded. And in the early hours of the 17th of April, the killer struck again. Detective Joseph Coffey is called to the Bronx.
That shooting, he killed 2 people, a boy and a girl in a car, again, having a liaison in the car.
Oh, boy and a girl. Oh,
and
wow.
he came up and killed both of them.
Oh, he just don't care.
20-year-old Alexander Esau and 18-year-old Valentina Siriani had both been shot twice. As usual, the killer had fled the scene. But this time, there was a twist.
In the shooting in the Bronx, a letter was left. The letter was addressed to Captain Joseph Borelli, who was working the case with me.
In part, the letter read, I am a monster. I am the son of Sam. I look out the attic window and watch the world go by. I feel like an outsider. I'm on a different wavelength than everybody else. Programmed to kill. Although police didn't know it, it had been written by a 23-year-old resident of an apartment block in Yonkers, David Richard Berkowitz. So who was this hunter who called himself the son of Sam? And had he, as he claimed, been programmed to kill?
Obviously, he hasn't been programmed to kill. Well, maybe by his parents, is that what he's saying? Because other than that, no.
His past life had a significant bearing, I believe, on whom his victims were.
Okay. Now, this might be interesting. Okay, what's that? This music is
David
loud, by the way.
Berkowitz was born Richard David Falco on the 1st of June 1953. The result of an extramarital affair, he was immediately given up for adoption to childless couple Nathan and Pearl Berkowitz.
Okay.
The Berkowitzes doted on their adopted son, but Berkowitz was very much like his adoptive parents socially in that he was isolated and quite lonely. He had very poor social skills and was regarded in the Bronx community where he was brought up as a bit of a bully and a loner.
The young Berkowitz would have sudden outbursts of anger and violence, leading to his adoptive parents taking him to a psychiatrist.
Of interest is that he always had tried to belong in his school. He didn't fit. He was kind of a loner, but not in the sense that you would be worried about him. He had no behavior problems, but he also had no friends that he felt close to.
Throughout his adolescence, there is no recorded incidents of Berkowitz having a girlfriend. It's interesting to speculate that his choice of targets are usually young women or young courting women who are in the company of their boyfriend might be seen as a way of Berkowitz acting out his inability to establish his own form of relationship.
But what about when the first two girls walking and then one was a girl walking from class? Huh. Yeah, I wonder. It's crazy though how. I wonder what his parents were actually like, because they said they were loners, and then he developed that way. But it sounds like his adoptive parents really liked him, but it's very
with a girlfriend.
Very unfortunate.
At 14 years old, Berkowitz would be devastated by the death of his adoptive mother Pearl from breast cancer.
Okay, here we go.
This seems to have been a crisis in his life. His grades at school will dive, he loses his faith in God, and so forth. And especially the kind of underlying problems that Berkowitz, the adult, is going to show are going to become exacerbated when his adoptive father remarries and he does not get on with his new stepmother, and his feelings of being isolated, of women abandoning him, become more and more exacerbated.
It's crazy. He didn't deal with the
At
death.
18, he joins the army.
He went off into the service, spent a year in Korea, spent a year in no uncertain terms of just getting intoxicated on drugs every single day.
Well, that's not good.
After serving overseas, Berkowitz was then posted back to the US, stationed in Virginia.
No drugs anymore, and instead we have a very, very lonely young man not knowing what to do with himself, who finds himself in the midst of a very intense Baptist region.
It's in the
And
Bible
in the
Belt,
fullness of time, he converts. But this is not somebody who really has found God, but really of wanting to be accepted and loved by others. This was a terribly, pathetically lonely young man.
Jeez.
Disillusioned with army life,
Can't find
Berkowitz
friends.
quits and returns to New York. He makes contact with his natural mother, who reveals the circumstances of his birth and adoption.
Oh, there go the
He found out
abandonment.
who his real parents were. It turned out his mother's married name was Italian, and that the man by whom she had fathered the child was Jewish. They had an extramarital affair. And this, I think, plays a direct role in whom he was watching, which couples he sought out. They were either Italian or Jewish.
Really?
And he would later write this, or say this, that he was in effect displacing his resentment at his parents, real parents, for having had him and then put him up for adoption that is, as he would view it, abandoned him.
As one of the victims, I'd be like, what does this have to do with me? Oh, and killing not wrong, and maybe he does, but I'm like, you got two other people that you could start off with, and you could end it there. Jeez. And my thing is, he's been in the military, so he knows how to use a gun, obviously. But, oof. So then he's just attacking people that either Jewish or Italian? It's crazy.
Living alone in New York, Berkowitz finds work as a security guard and a taxi driver. He develops an obsession for starting fires.
Berkowitz set 1,488 fires before he started killing people. How do we know that? He documented it very carefully in his diary.
What do you mean he started
No
fires?
real intent for damage, but to be able to call out for help or for succor or support by turning in a fire alarm and watching the fire engines come out.
Okay.
That's what he was so seeking of some kind of external response.
These fires, in my judgment, were sexually motivated as well, because look at the power and control that you can have by setting a fire. You could set a building on fire, a car, a field. And for these individuals, that type of control is eroticized. It's sexually stimulating to them to do that type of thing.
Okay. I don't know who this guy is, but he is relating everything to sex. And right now, like, I can understand David, if he's never been with a woman, being frustrated. I can understand that. But this dude he's motivated. I think he had people abandon him in his life. He lost the person who he called his mom. Then he finds his real mom. I'm not sure if he finds his dad, but he's like, okay, these are people that abandoned me. And you never know what happens to people when they go overseas in the military and stuff like that. Not sure if he had to fight in the war or not. But yeah, it's probably a lot mentally for him to take on. And he's still young at the time, because I want to say he's still 20. So, yeah, sexually motivated, I don't know about that. There's going to have to be some more stuff in this story to show me this.
In 1976, Berkowitz moved to a top-floor apartment in Yonkers, New York. Neighbors began to notice strange incidents.
There was many dogs being killed, primarily German Shepherds. It seemed like every day a dead dog would turn up in the neighborhood, either here, back in the woods behind the house, in the woods at this end of the house, or the woods over at that end. And fires, frequent fires in this area, including the same apartment number in the various buildings, 1, 2, and 3. The house you can see far back there, apartment building, almost took off the whole corner of the building.
One neighbor in particular was singled out for special attention.
David Berkowitz lived in the back far corner of the building, and if you look down, you would see a street that Sam Carr's house was on. Sam Carr had a black Labrador that lived in the backyard in a doghouse.
Sam Carr's dog would bark incessantly through the night. Berkowitz began writing anonymous threatening letters to Sam, eventually shooting and injuring the dog.
He has underlying mental health problems in which it's not a question of switching on and switching off those mental health problems. It's a question of his disordered thinking is actually what patterns his consistent behavior day in, day out.
In June 1976, David Berkowitz travels to Texas and pays a surprise call on a former Army acquaintance, Bill Parker.
Berkowitz showed up unexpectedly at his house and said, "I'd like to buy a weapon, but in Texas you need a driver's license to buy a weapon." So Parker accommodated him and went into a pawn shop. Berkowitz pointed out the .44 caliber Charter Arms revolver, and Parker bought it, and then he gave it to Berkowitz. not knowing that a few weeks later the Son of Sam killings would begin in New York City.
By the spring of 1977, Berkowitz had claimed the lives of 5 young people. But his reign of terror was far from over.
I don't understand how they couldn't find him.
By April of 1977, serial killer, the Son of Sam, had claimed the lives of 5 victims and injured more in a series of attacks that had sent shockwaves through the city of New York. On the 19th of April, in an effort to quell the growing hysteria and track down the killer, police established the Omega Task Force.
Operation Omega was the task force set up for the purpose of capturing him in the act of one of his shootings. We combined the detective forces, which were investigators from all over New York City, with the patrol force, which were the uniform cops in New York City, to the point where we had 300 to 400 detectives and uniform patrols on the streets of New York, particularly in the boroughs of Queens and the Bronx, looking to catch this individual in the act of committing his crimes.
On the 30th of May, while hundreds of officers were trying to track him down, the Son of Sam spoke out again. This time, writing to the New York Daily News.
How did they not find him?
The letter began, "Hello from the gutters of New York City, which are filled with dog manure, vomit, stale wine, urine and blood. Hello from the sewers of New York City, which swallow up these delicacies when they are washed away by the sweeper trucks. Hello from the cracks in the sidewalks of New York City, and from the ants that dwell in these cracks and feed on the dried blood of the dead." It continued, "I am still here, like a spirit roaming the night, thirsty, hungry, seldom stopping to rest, anxious to please Sam."
These individuals are very often highly narcissistic, and it's not unusual at all for them to want publicity, to follow the publicity in the media, and to get some sort of stimulation as a result of that, because in their mind, they think that they're smarter than the police, they're smarter than everybody.
People were very nervous,
He's got away with 5 killings so far.
apprehensive. They saw ghosts in all the shadows. Girls cut their hair, long hair, made it short, changed the color. The nightclubs, bars, dance halls, all losing business.
I bet.
Streets were
Had to.
empty. Everybody was just terrified.
Night after night, a massive task force patrolled the streets across New York and staked out lovers' lanes. But no one knew if, when or where the killer might strike again. On June the 26th, they found out.
As soon as we got here, we knew it was the Son of Sam. There was a hot summer night, 1977, and that particular night I got a call over the air that a shooting occurred at this location, which occurred right up the block here. 2 young people in the car, both shot. A discotheque here with hundreds of young people inside. Patrol cars all over the place, a scene of panic, people in the streets. The uniformed police responded, cordoned off the area. We conducted our forensic investigation, and we also canvassed the area of witnesses.